Joe, it's like I'm meeting you for the first time over and over again. I love it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Jason, Joe, and Kramzer here, coming at you with a record review, and today we're talking about the new Bright Eyes record, Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was. This is a new record. I believe it's the 10th studio album from Bright Eyes, their first in 9 years. Back together, a new record with a bunch of guest appearances. You've got Flea playing bass on about half the record. You've also got Theodore, who has played with Mars Volta and Queens of the Stone Age, playing drums on the vast majority of the record. First thoughts from you guys?
First thought is that if we hadn't said Flea was on this album, you wouldn't know it because he doesn't bring a lot of the classic Flea-ness to it. But the bass playing's good, but he's not taking over the sound of the bass and the rhythm section. He's not out there slapping circa early RHCP, but it's cool to know that he's on it. Do they have any history together, like prior to this? This is kind of shocking.
Yeah, Nate Walcott is the touring keyboard player for the Chili Peppers when he's not in Bright Eyes. That's sort of his side gig.
That'll do it. Flea's been hooking up with everybody lately.
And I agree that Flea doesn't have a major impact on the sound of the record. He does do a little bit of like slapping stuff on One and Done, and when you know it's Flea, you can kind of tell it's him, but if you didn't know it was him, you probably wouldn't assume so. Theodore, on the other hand, though, I think does have a fairly big impact on the sound of this record. I think the drumming is a lot more advanced and sort of proggy and different than on past Bright Eyes records.
Yeah, it kind of gives it the most contemporary sound rhythmically that they've ever done. But there are also elements of this that have just been around Bright Eyes for years. But I would say the drumming is the most advanced, and it's good.
Well, speaking of the rhythm section, I believe Flea and Theodore worked on De-loused in the Comatorium, Mars Volta record. And when I listened to the album at first, I didn't check the credits. I didn't know it was Flea, but I definitely noticed the bass. And I thought it was really good. You know, I don't always notice the bass, even though I'm a bass player in my past, so I do kind of tend to listen for it. But the bass and the drums, I really noticed kind of prominently alongside all the orchestration. And Conor Oberst, you know, he has a unique voice, but I think they all work really well together. I think it would be easy for him to get all over the place and crazy and just be totally ostentatious, but I think his playing is very tasteful. It's a nice counterpoint. And I think in general, the instrumentation on this album is amazing. I think it's just awesome. All the million different instruments. If you look at the credits, you know, it's electric guitar, pedal steel, banjo, hammered dulcimer, flugelhorn, trumpet, mellotron, harpsichord. There's so much stuff going on, but I think it's all just kind of top of the line, awesome.
It's never too much. It's never overly pageantry. It's everything's just perfect, and it'll be just a little bit of an instrument that you won't hear again until 6 songs for another 10 seconds, but it serves its purpose so well. It's great.
Yeah, I think this has sort of been a trend with Bright Eyes records. I think each one is sort of getting more and more kind of ornate with the instrumentation, more going on. And I think the side effect of that is maybe the songs don't hit you as directly, or maybe there's some emotional impact lost, but I don't say that as like a negative thing. I think there's a little bit of a trade-off between that and sort of this more interesting musical landscape that they have going on.
Well, and definitely his emotions aren't quite as raw as they were maybe 20 years ago, but the craft is better. So like you said, it is a nice trade-off. And I think the craft on this album is really good. I don't know if the songwriting is as good as it used to be. It might just be a little bit by numbers by now, but it's still really good. I don't think there's like a standout banger Bright Eyes track on this that would be like an all-time great Bright Eyes song, but this is a really good Bright Eyes album. It's got a cool, unique sort of balance between being really soulful and personal, especially in some stuff when he's talking about like dreaming about his ex-wife's face and a lot of stuff. I mean, the opening is just that recording of his family talking or whatever. But it also has this kind of like cryptic, nostalgic world has fallen apart around him sort of sense of like a dream-like deconstruction. It kind of brings up images of those falling buildings from like Inception, where it's just like the world around me is dead, but I still have all these really like intimate, I'm still personalizing things and I'm just affected by everything around. It's kind of apocalyptic, and he doesn't have as much of like that self-destruction sort of like pathetic drunkenness that he used to, but it's still there a little bit. He's still got a little bit of the gravel in his voice, and it's still definitely a Bright Eyes album, but definitely, like you said, is going in that more ornate, full, almost like Baroque direction.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Imperial Bedroom almost, just like the maximal sounds on every song from everywhere. There's no silence. There's no kind of counterpoint to that, which maybe could grate on somebody, but I really like this style where it's just, every time you listen to it, you hear something new, you hear little pieces and little instruments that you may not have heard before, and kind of really gets me right here. This is kind of my ideal idea of a record.
Yeah, and I kind of really like how, even though I said the songwriting isn't as good as it used to be, he's still got some really good, catchy rhythm to his melodies, his vocal melodies that still have kind of that old school alt country sound, a little bit of like Jeff Tweedy style at times, but the wordplay is really great, and if you listen to it enough, you can eventually sing along to it, especially like a couple songs like Mariana Trench or Phantom Room, but it's good. It's really good. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars.
I think we all maybe come to Bright Eyes from different directions, because I'm not a Bright Eyes completionist or anything like that. I went back and listened to the last 2 albums, Casadega and The People's Key, and I think I've heard the other ones before, but not for, a long time. So I was kind of surprised myself at how much I like this. I like Casadega and The People's Key, but this is definitely, for me, hits kind of, closer to home for what I want to hear.
Yeah, I've always liked Bright Eyes a good bit. My favorite stretch is like right when he started to expand his sound a little bit more, right around like, the mid 2000s into the release before this, and still kind of in that era. This probably falls around number 3 or 4 is my favorite Bright Eyes album. I wouldn't say Bright Eyes has like a 5 out of 5 album for me. Maybe the highest is 4.5 out of 5, but this is this is a really good album for 2020 for me as well.
I agree that it's a really good album, and I do like it a lot. I think I still need to spend a little more time with it, because at this present moment, it's probably the weakest of the last 5 or 6 Bright Eyes albums for me. But I could see where a little more time with it could grow on me to being at least, at the same level or better than People's Key. I do like it a lot, though. I think it's really good. For me personally, Casadega is my favorite Bright Eyes track, which is where you sort of start to really see that sort of added instrumentation creeping into their sound, I think, significantly. But for me, we were talking about that trade-off before, and that for me is like the perfect balance, where maybe the last 2 records are starting to tilt a little too far into the heavy instrumentation. But I still think it's great. I'm going to go 4 stars on it as well. The last review we did was the new Killers record, and I said that was kind of like barely a 4-star record, and I think this is more solidly 4 stars.
Oh, this album is light years better than the new Killers record. That's preposterous.
I don't know if I'd say that, but, well, maybe I would, because I'm giving this 4.5. And it was close to a 5. I think the first half and the last 3 songs are a 5-star album. A little lull in the middle, but I really, really like it. It's odds-on favorite for album of the year for me.
Wow. Wait a minute. The middle is weak for you with Persona non grata and Tilt-A-Whirl? Like, those songs are killer. Where's your middle here? What are you talking about? What are you going on about?
I would say from Stairwell Song to, I don't know, maybe Forced Convalescence. it's just not as gripping for me. I mean, I think the first, from Dance and Sing to Pan and Broom, are maybe like the 5 best songs I've heard all year. 5 stars, love it. And I really like Calais Dover and Comet Song at the end. So this is, I mean, it's like a 4.75.
I hope it hangs on the rest of the way and is your album of the year. I never thought I would live in a world where Bright Eyes was Joe's favorite record of the year.
Nothing else has gotten over a 4 so far this year for me. So this is in a class by itself.
I think the best song on it is Just Once in the World. I really dig it. Close. Persona non grata is pretty close as well, but it's, I don't think it has a lull in the middle, and I don't really think it has a lull anywhere. I do think it might be maybe 9 or 10 minutes too long, maybe cut off a couple songs, but that's about it.
We're doing favorite tracks. Mine is One and Done. That's my favorite track on the record. It's got that sort of slap bass and the big orchestral arrangement outro, which is really cool. Kind of a quiet, dark song too.
Yeah, that might be my favorite. I really like Mariana Trench and Dance and Sing and Just Once in the World. The first, 2 through 5 is just phenomenal. I love them all. So if I had to pick one, I'll go with One and Done as well.
Nice.
All right. Well, let us know what you think of the record if you've given it a listen. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and also check down in the description for links to all of our social media accounts. We've got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And one last thing I want to say before we go, we hit 1,000 subscribers last week. So thank everybody for that. And that means we have the community tab on our page now where we will be putting a poll for people to vote on for them to decide what one of the upcoming listography weeks will be. So head over there, check that out. And if you're not subscribed yet, while you're on the page, hit subscribe. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.